Thank you, Kevin. Welcome into Pro Football Today, the post-game show now. And while there was bad calls, bad coaching, a lot of bad things overall, at least you got great insight entertainment from the in-game live crew. But it's time for myself, Kasey Hudson, and Tom Vecchio to run through what we just saw between the Falcons and the Eagles. Eagles walking away with the win 22-21, able to convert, closing out the game. I mean, talk about a massive minute and 40 some odd seconds. That's the Kirk Cousins and company we should have seen way earlier in the game to make it less snoozy. But Tom, let me know your thoughts on the full recap of this game.
Yeah, well, what an ending to that game. A little bit slow in the first half, as we kind of talked about. Monumental things in terms of futures like this. I don't want to say this saved the Falcons season, but they were playing the Chiefs next week. Like they could have been staring down 0-3, which would be a disaster start for them. But now they kind of were able to right the ship. And with Dallas losing, Philly had a chance to be 2-0 and be that much further ahead. And the Cowboys are playing the Ravens next week, and that's not an easy game for the Cowboys. And if they lost that, they'd be 1-2, and Philly would be sitting here too. So many things are happening as a result of this game, not just in terms of the players, what we saw from them, the Falcons offense rounding into form, still some inconsistencies with the Eagles offense as we saw at the end of last season. But in terms of futures, again, not my favorite topic, but this was a massive, massive week, not just for these two teams, but how it permutates through the matchups that we're going to see. We'll talk about, I assume, some of them. So we have a ton to get to.
Yeah, we definitely have a ton to get to. And I'm glad that you kind of threw out there the domino effect this can potentially have down the stretch. When you're looking at some of the mistakes made by the Eagles team tonight, and then you consider what they're coming up against shortly. You got a Saints team that's riding high right now, defense coming in strong, but they are able to match that on the offensive side of the ball. Then you've got the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. They're doing really well right now, regardless of the injuries that they stacked up on both sides of the ball. The Browns are a big question mark in a number of ways. The Giants and then the Bengals, who have something to prove and put in a big fight versus the Chiefs. A lot of messy play calling there, or not play calling, but flags that were tossed out, and then Jaguars. So once this stretch goes in, if the Eagles make any of the mistakes that they made tonight in the next couple of games, then yeah, a lot of future pots are going to be mixed up and not in a poetic way. Just to kind of put it in perspective before Tom and I dive a little deeper here, Cousins closes out the night, 241 passing yards, 2 tutties. Then you got Hurts, 183, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. We did see some big shakeups when it comes to the defense and turnovers. Robinson closes out the night at 97 rushing yards. Barkley at 95 rushing yards through 22 carries. Mooney ends up being the guy to really pull through for the Falcons. And then Devontae Smith with 76 receiving yards, 7 receptions, and 1 touchdown. I don't know if we should go to our bets. I don't even know where to start with this. The game was just a bit of a sleeper in that first half. I mean, honestly, through 3 quarters, things start to come alive in the fourth quarter. It's not like the Falcons really did that much better. They just kind of converted on their top moments. But third downs, I mean, they were 1-8 in third downs. It was disgusting. And then you see some messy calls on the Eagles side. So where do we start with this, Tom? I don't even know which side of the slate to go to.
I mean, a quick recap of things. We saw both Bijan Robinson and Saquon hit the over on their rushing, their combined rushing plus receiving. Good stuff from them. We did see Dallas Goedert. He ended at 38, which is over the live number that I spoke about at halftime. Saquon also went over his live number that I spoke about at halftime. But if we remember back to the pregame show, Adam was saying that Dallas Goedert's number was 39.5, 40, depending on where you got it. So he hit the under for the game overall, but the live over that I spoke about at halftime hits. Smith had the touchdown. Kyle Pitts hit under on his yard, so that's another win for me, which is good. Like I said, the Hurts rushing got over in the first half, which isn't great. But I would say one good takeaway is that we were actually seeing the Falcons and their offense finally come into form. And as I also said on the pregame show, they have to make a concerted effort to get Drake London the ball. He is their best receiver, not counting Bijan Robinson, but their best receiving option is Drake London. After a slow week 1 with a tough Pittsburgh defense, they had to get Drake London the ball, and that's exactly what they did, tied for a team high in 7 targets. Receptions, 54 yards. I'll have to dig into his snap rate and his route running rate, but I assume those are both pretty high. Again, it's going to be a week on, week off thing with Kyle Pitts, depending on what his prop is at. That's what I'll have the most interest in. in him ultimately. But really, it's Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and then we can look to Darnell Mooney. I know he had a solid game today, but it's not going to be an every week thing from him. So good stuff overall from a player prop perspective. We saw Devontae Smith come through with A.J. Brown out. There are some team level things I think the Eagles need to work out. But if you're on Barkley tonight, outside of a touchdown, you had a pretty good week.
Yes, and I finally fall into that category, Tom. So I'll probably run through my betting sheet once we get back from this that you laid out perfectly, as well as kind of the spins that the Falcons had going to Drake London at the right time. If you had him for an anytime touchdown, that was perfect because he has to do. That's where he has to produce more prominently. A lot of teams are going to be locking in on Robinson, trying to minimize and isolate his production coming down the stretch here. So the Falcons do have to figure out how to kind of have that balanced attack. They started to find that rhythm towards the end of the game. Rhythm, cadence is everything. So how they bring that back into their matchups heading into week 3. But I will say this, with their limited possession time, they closed out the night with 24 minutes and 21 seconds of possession time in comparison to the Eagles' 35 minutes and 39 seconds. 10 plays less offensively, and then they were actually ahead when it came to offensive yardage, 385 offensive yards in comparison to the Eagles' 365. So it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. We did see the Eagles, especially Sauce Gardner, come up with a big, massive stop, but you've got to have those stops more consistently, and you can't put yourself in those prime positions. So Tom and I will continue to dive deeper into the props and so much more here on Pro Football Today, the post-game show on SportsGrid TV. Stick with us after this quick break.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today, post-game show with Kasey Hudson and Tom Vecchio, running through the recap of that very interesting game. And in case you missed it, Falcons ran out on top, 22-21. I mean, it was a 6-play drive between Kirk Cousins and then Drake in the end zone, keeping those 2 toes in for that tutty. A little celebration was a little costly at the end of it there, but look, I mean, those are the plays that you want to see. That's the drive that you want to see. We just saw it a tad too late tonight, but You mentioned the plays that worked out for you, and you had some great calls at the halftime show for Pro Football Today that a lot of people should have been engaging because a lot of it played out very nicely. I stuck with the Falcons. I think that worked in my favor, but in terms of my night, Robinson, 60-plus rush yards. That got hammered over before the halftime came about. Then I had Saquon Barkley, 110-plus rushing, combined with receiving yards at plus 115. And, guys, I got it by like this much. 113 was his combined total by the end of the night. Dallas Goedert, over 4.5 receptions. Yep, not too hot. Only 3 receptions on the night. I think he closed out at like 39 on the dot. So a number of people that tried to hit that over for 40, or depending on where you got the number, as Tom was talking about, probably not too hot. Judon, not a sack tonight, but that's totally fine. And then Falcons first half, plus 2.5 spread. We already talked about at halftime, closed out pretty nicely. So I'd say we both did pretty okay tonight. I think we reversed some of the ick from yesterday. I think it was a rough day for a lot of people yesterday, but I think some of the roughness did continue today. Tom, how did you close out?
Good. This game went largely as I anticipated. A bit more scoring. The game did hit the under. The same game parlay that I talked about during the pregame show had Smith to score a touchdown, Robinson for 25-plus receiving yards, and the Eagles' money line. And I was thinking that was in pretty good shape in the fourth quarter when the Eagles took the lead, and I was thinking that was going to be a nice win. So 2 of the 3 legs hit. Obviously, that doesn't matter because not all of them come through. But, I think that we're going to have some of these games where we're right about a lot. And the Miami-Buffalo game from last week, we weren't right about a lot of those things. But the San Francisco-New York Jets game, we were right about a lot. So we're going to have some of these up and down weeks. I think we are looking at things in the proper way. Moving forward and moving, I guess I'd say into the next game with the Patriots and the Jets on Thursday night, I think we're going to be in for kind of something similar to tonight, probably a lack of scoring as well. And it comes down to which players we want to be targeting, which players we think are going to be the most effective.
That is a good point. I would say that because we closed off on a good note, it's probably the perfect position to pivot and start looking ahead because, boy, do we have a slate for week 3 coming in, not to mention the doubleheader next week that we have for Monday Night Football, and you already know where to hang out here on SportsGrid TV with the Pro Football Today crew, me, Tom, Dave, and Adam. So you already kind of charged ahead there, Tom, which I appreciate. You got the Patriots who I was reading some things that Bill Belichick was talking about in the last couple of days, and Belichick mentioned the fact that this is a Patriots team whose defense, regardless of what the roster looks like, just kind of tends to come together and have some of those big stop moments. It might not be the most flattering roster, but the big stops are always kind of in their pocket. So you're going against a Jets team that, that's fine. They walked away with a W this weekend. Obviously, week 1 didn't open up the way that they wanted to, but how do we kind of gauge this matchup? Because it feels super messy before we even get to it, yet it could be more of a methodical game in terms of everyone sticking to their game plan and maybe the Jets being able to get a clean and clear win.
I think we are in for a classic Thursday night game, and if you told me we're going to be here at, I don't know what it is, 72 hours on Thursday night, wherever that is, in this exact spot. If you told me the Jets win this game 20-13, 17-10, I wouldn't be shocked at all. I think that's the type of game that we're going to be in for on Thursday night. I think the Patriots at plus 6.5, that is a fantastic spot. Like you said, they're coming together. They may not be the most talented team on offense or defense, but they're going to stick together. This is a divisional game. I think they want to prove the point. Laying 6.5 with the Jets is also something I have a massive issue with, considering how they have fared through 2 weeks this season. So Pat's 6.5 is a spot that I absolutely love right now. If it gets to 7, I'll absolutely love that. 37.5, I'm kind of on board with the under. I do not think we're going to see a lot of scoring. We know that the Jets do have an awesome defense, and they can absolutely shut down the Patriots. So what we saw from the Patriots in week 1, that kind of game environment, that's what we're probably going to be seeing on Thursday night.
Yeah, and as we've come to learn, sometimes when you see these lines come out at 37.5 and company, it's probably not too crazy to look at the under, but we'll figure out what the sportsbook have in mind or what they're teasing with this. Obviously, again, you want to stick with us here on Pro Football Today. We got another quick break coming up. We're going to continue to roll through the Week 3 slate, so don't go anywhere. Stick with us here on SportsGrid TV.
going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today, the post-game show with myself, Kasey Hudson, and Tom Vecchio. We already did the recap of the unique game that we all just watched, 22-1. Falcons get the victory. Now it's time to turn the page and move along to Week 3. We got a Thursday night football going on tonight, or not tonight, this week, later on this week. If you ask me what day it is within the last 12 hours, I have named every day but Monday. But we've got the Patriots taking on the Jets. Tom was just breaking down the fact that this 37.5 total is not particularly the scariest total. We know that the sports books like to tease sometimes, but looking at the defensive matchups that should come to play in this matchup, I could totally see the under as well, which is a nerve-wracking thing. As you guys have also probably picked up on, I've become a fan at playing the halves. So I know we're getting very much ahead of ourselves, Tom, but before we move on to the next game, would you maybe even entertain like a first-half spread in this, knowing how much of a sticky situation it could be?
I probably can, and ultimately I think I would side with the Patriots at plus 3.5. That's where it's at now. Again, short week for both of these teams. It is early season, so like the teams are mostly healthy. The Jets just lost Jermaine Johnson, if I remember correctly, with an Achilles injury. He's going to be out for the year. So, a lack of health, at least from the Jets side of things. I'm not threatened by at least the Patriots offense, and I'm not necessarily worried about the Jets running away with things because they haven't been able to do that thus far this season. I will say, first glance, Garrett Wilson touchdown. I think he finds his way into the end zone. I don't expect a massive performance out of anyone. So I'm fine with the Patriots in the first half. I'm fine with them in the game overall, but I still think we will get a touchdown from Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I'm right on board with you on that one. It'll definitely be on the card. You mentioned a key word, Tom, health. And we've seen a massive amount of injury reports. I think all of us who cover the NFL say this every single season, but I swear the last 48 hours have been a little doom and gloom. So we might as well go to a matchup between two extremely banged up teams. 49ers taking on the Los Angeles Rams. Spread sitting at 7.5 right now. We also found out earlier today that Deebo Samuel, I don't recall if I saw how much time he was going to be out with, but it was a calf situation for him. So now they're down another weapon, Christian McCaffrey. That whole situation popped about. So even though they're not in a detrimental spot, you're losing two key guys that help you get down the field. And then the Rams, well, it's just been clarified that Cooper Kupp not only left the game in a boot yesterday, but that he was heading to IR. So, I mean, how do we even look at this one knowing that there's so many key players just kind of off of the roster for the night?
I think this game's all about the under. And there may be some value in Jordan Mason total attempts. This past week, it was sitting at 17.5. It was minus 110, minus 120, wherever you can find it. They're going to be with no Deebo Samuel, no Christian McCaffrey. Hopefully, Brandon Ayuk will be at full form, a full snap count from him. George Kittle left the game against Minnesota only due to going back to the locker room and getting an IV. He should be good to go. There's no Puka Nacua. There's no Cooper Kupp. You told me, if you were to say to me that Kyron Williams and Jordan Mason just carry the ball combined 40-plus times, I'm not going to be shocked. I don't see either team pushing the ball downfield too much. I guess I would side with the 49ers. If you just give me Kittle and Ayuk, it would be better than Demarcus Robinson and Colby Parkinson. So we're not looking at anything exciting in this game outside of Mason. Maybe Stafford under yards, just because he just doesn't have the options to throw the ball. This is also a divisional matchup, so I generally side with unders when we do see those divisional matchups. And I got to say, I know the Rams were kind of like an upset pick for people this season, but they're also staring down 0-3 if they lose this game, as the 7.5 spread would indicate. So I don't mind taking the points with the Rams, but I'm not in love with it right now. I would much rather go with the under 43.5.
Yeah, the hard part with that, I love the Stafford under pick, honestly, because even if he can kind of get off a few balls, I mean, we're not seeing any massive yardage out of him. And plus, we've seen kind of different scripts out of this team with each matchup because they've had guys go out in the middle of the game. They've kind of had to revamp their execution plan, and that's a tough position to be in. So we can't even gauge and see what this team's going to look like down the stretch, because if you're not going to get guys back for weeks on end, then we're probably almost calling it a season when it comes to the Rams. That total that Tom mentioned is sitting at 43.5 currently over on FanDuel, and as I mentioned earlier, 7.5 spread. So definitely a lot of unders worth gauging here, and probably a lot of ground gains worth paying a closer attention to. Another team that's going to kind of be facing some injuries that might play into a different attack is going to be Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Atlanta Falcons down in Atlanta. And with Pacheco being out of the mix, we've seen a lot of weight shouldered on Xavier Worthy. We've seen him rise to the occasion. We haven't seen as much out of Travis Kelce. We talked about the fact that that was because of how many weapons they had to get into the mix. But is this finally the week that we see a big Travis Kelce game because of some of the guys that are going to be out of the lineup?
It might be, everything that I said about the Chiefs after that Thursday night opening game has gone away, where it didn't have to be a massive week from any one player. It can be spread out. They have so many options. It's this, that, the other. Everyone can be rolling on all cylinders. That's not the case anymore. What we saw from Devonta Smith tonight against this Falcons defense is encouraging for Rashee Rice, who should be having an expanded role on the offense if they're not going to be running the ball as much. Samaje P. Ryan should be the starting running back now for the Chiefs. He's probably not going to play a massive role overall, but he does have some value coming out of the backfield with some receptions. So it does turn into a Rice plus Kelce game as maybe the main two, and then Xavier Worthy as that third option. So I'm hesitant to jump to anything until the lines come out. This game line just came out 46.5 and minus 4.5 for the Chiefs. But the player props are going to be the most interesting because, like you said, Travis Kelce has done basically nothing this season, but the books are still going to put him up in the mid to high 50s, 60s, probably just because they respect Mahomes and Kelce and what they can do. So it is a big wait and see for the Chiefs player props this week. But I'm going to say Rice might end up being my favorite.
Yeah, I have to say that I'm right there with you when it comes down to Rice, because he's also really good at managing the ball. And when you have that connection with a guy like Patrick Mahomes who can place the ball anywhere he wants to, as long as the player can rise to the occasion, we're going to see some big plays out of that. I also don't want to jump ahead and say it's going to be a big game for Travis Kelce, even though they've had a lot of weapons to distribute amongst. I'm just still, there's some reservation that I have in terms of when his big game is going to come, and it's not sitting on the charts for me this week. I just think that there's a couple of teams that are going to be able to kind of hyper focus on him, and they're going to have to use that to their advantage, them being the Chiefs. If we had to get so far ahead of ourselves, Tom, is there a chance that we at least see, over 6 receptions for Drake London, or definitely a lot more yardage for him? Or do we kind of maybe just start preparing ourselves to potentially throw one more touchdown prop at him? Like, we're just getting way ahead of ourselves here, but the expectation from fans, from bettors, is likely what when it comes to Drake London?
He should be the most consistent receiving option for the Falcons. We're going to see these big plays to Mooney and Ray McLeod getting downfield just because that's their role. But in terms of moving the chains, it should be Drake London. So I assume his prop's going to be 5.5. Most weeks, it'll probably be juiced to the over, minus 150-ish on the over if I had to guess. His receiving yards are probably going to be sitting in the mid-60s. If this game turns into a shootout, he's going to play a big role. So I'm interested in London just because I think he's a phenomenal talent, but it comes down to what the lines are actually going to be once they get posted.
Absolutely. And then I know a lot of bettors are probably going to be like, well, look at what Robinson just did to the Eagles. Look at what he's done so far this season. Look at the expectation on his shoulders. In terms of the run game, when the Bengals just took on the Chiefs, Zach Moss being their lead rusher only picked up 34 rushing yards through 12 carries. Now, the Chiefs weren't the best run-stop defense last year, but we did see some adjustments made where they were able to come up a little bit stronger. And then even jumping back to week 1, looking at what the Ravens were able to do, Lamar Jackson was the lead rusher with 122 rushing yards. So kind of take that as you will. If you've got a strong back, I mean, maybe that's a guy that can pick up some yards. We also have to gauge and see where Robinson's numbers come in, because if they come in below that 60 mark, kind of how the Lions started out initially heading into this game, could be worth gauging because he's doing very well regardless of what the defense has to offer. But we have a lot more in week 3 to break down. Kasey Hudson with Tom Vecchio here on Pro Football Today, the post-game show. So don't go anywhere. We get into more week 3 action. We get into more props that we can gauge, at least at this point, and then we get you guys ready for the next big Pro Football Today pregame show coming up on Thursday.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today, the post-game show with myself, Kasey Hudson, and Tom Vecchio. We are running through the Week 3 slate because it's time to turn the page and look ahead. But in case you missed it, or in case you decided to shut off the game because the first half kind of snoozed you a little bit, Falcons do get the victory 22-21. They get a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, a little bit of confidence heading into the next matchup, which is going to be against the Chiefs. But Tom and I are running through it. We talked about the Chiefs. We talked about Pacheco being out of the lineup, what that could potentially mean. Obviously, we got to get closer to game time before we start seeing some locked-in props. But that brings us to another team that's got a lot of weight on their shoulders and how they are going to produce this season. A lot of people, especially Cowboys fans, were riding high on what they would deliver this year in Week 1. But then they take a beating to the Saints 44-19 unexpectedly. Dak Prescott gets the numbers, 293 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 unfortunate interceptions. No ground game really existed. I mean, you got Rico with 30 rushing yards, and then it just dwindles down from there. I'm talking 16, 12, 11. We shouldn't even talk about it. And then CeeDee Lamb shows up, but I mean, he got paid to do just this. 90 receiving yards through 4 receptions and 1 tutty. But outside of that, Tom, I mean, what hope are the Cowboys hanging on to when it comes to their next matchup? And there's a lot of pressure on both teams' shoulders here.
Yeah, this is a massive matchup against Baltimore. Super exciting. If you are holding a Baltimore Ravens future for the conference, the Super Bowl, the division, this is like red alert time if they are 0-3 after this game. 1.5 point favorites on the road. I think that's where I would side with the Ravens. This is a monumental matchup, again, for really both teams. If the Cowboys end up 1-2, we're going to see, and if the Lions can beat the Cardinals and the Eagles play next week, they are playing, if I can find, they're playing at the Saints. So that's also a huge matchup. So we are looking at some massive NFC matchups. So if you are an Eagles ticket holder, you're rooting for the Ravens and you are rooting for the Cardinals because the Lions beat the Cardinals. The Eagles do not have a tough matchup against the Saints. And if the Ravens win, that would vault one of these teams ahead. Again, there's a lot of different combinations of which team wins, which team loses. That's what I think you should be looking at if you're a future ticket holder. Where am I looking for the best bets when it comes to my futures? Is there a way to potentially hedge out? Because 0-3, you are not looking at a chance at the number 1 seed. That's just what it comes down to. You're not going to have the number 1 seed. You're probably not going to have the number 2 seed if you're a Ravens ticket holder. It's going to come down to the Chiefs and the Bills at 1-2. If the Bengals bounce back, you're going to have 2 games still against the Bengals, which would, I would say, go 1-1 in those games. And if you're a Cowboys holder, you are also in a tough spot considering we're going to have the Lions potentially jumping ahead of you, the 49ers potentially picking up a win against a massively depleted Ravens team. This game impacts both conferences in such a huge way that the result is, I'm going to say, determine the season for both teams.
Yeah, and that's a great rundown, and a lot of people should actually be focusing on that because we actually have almost 2 weeks worth of major NFC matchups. And if you look at what a lot of people were saying ahead of the season and having Lions out there and having a few other teams in the mix, this is where things start to get shaken up, and this is where you could probably grab some value. We did see defensive struggles out of both of these teams, Tom, obviously with the Cowboys falling short to the Saints as well as the Ravens getting bested by the Raiders, but that didn't happen until the second half. I mean, Raiders held down with 9 points in that first half and then just kind of fell apart in the second half here. So which offense has the taller task in this matchup, would you say? Is it going to be the Cowboys or is it going to be the Ravens?
It's probably going to be the Ravens because what we've seen from the Cowboys, at least in the second half, they were passing the ball well. I don't think Jake Ferguson will play, but just knowing we have this dominant threat over the top like CeeDee Lamb, we have some options on the team. He was great this past week against the Raiders. He did absolutely nothing. We're seeing great stuff from Zay Flowers in this most recent week. Cowboys strong suit. Doesn't matter that they have Zeke back there. They should not be trusting him with the offense. It's going to come down to the passing offense for the Ravens. Can they keep up with the Cowboys if needed?
Yeah, and I know for me, I'll probably be looking a bit closer at the running back group here because what Kamara did versus the Cowboys, I mean, 115 rushing yards, and then you have Derrick Henry who finally got a better total number, 84 rushing yards and 1 touchdown as well. So, I mean, he's supposed to be one of those alleviators. He's supposed to be getting a bigger play. He's supposed to basically be the or the Saquon Barkley to the Eagles, what he should be to the Ravens. So I wouldn't be surprised if a bigger performance is rested on his shoulders after what Kamara just did. But speaking of a team that's got to have a big performance, Lions have to come in hot because you cannot underestimate this Cardinals team. Cardinals kind of had the Bills against the ropes in week 1, fell apart in the second half, or not fell apart. I mean, the Bills just brought their better game in the second half. I got to give them credit for that. Then they have a massive win, 41 points that they're able to pick up in week 2. Heading into week 3, they're going against a Lions team that just fell short to the Bucs. So how do we kind of weather this one? Do we continue to see that the rookie is going to have a large role? Do we see that Kyler Murray is going to be able to pick up some yardage? What are we investing here?
I think that's what we're going to be in for. This shapes up to be the most exciting game on the slate with a 52.5 over-under. I mean, there are some ugly over-unders on this upcoming week slate with many games sub 40, which is absolutely disgusting. But 52.5 over-under, two very competent offenses. Amon-Ra St. Brown is dealing with some ankle thing, but Adam Schefter tweeted earlier today that it was cramping and a contusion. There's no ligament issue. There's nothing there, so he should be good to go. Two awesome offenses that can move the ball. Jared Goff, a little bit inconsistent last week against a good Bucs defense, some interceptions, no touchdowns from him. We're going to see some points. We're going to see a lot of points in this matchup. This is what we should be seeing. This is the high level of quarterback play with awesome weapons around him. That's what we should be seeing. So Jameson Williams continuing to get downfield for the Lions, matched by Marvin Harrison now. We are in for some fireworks. I'm expecting a ton of points. I think live betting this game is going to present a ton of value on both sides.
I'm here for the point total to be rallied up, and probably going to be looking at a lot of counter bets once we get closer to this matchup as well. But don't go anywhere. We got a couple more games to preview when it comes to week 3 here on Pro Football Today, the post-game show. So stick with us here on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
New to the Live Golf Plus app. Watch Live Golf any way you want it. Follow any group. Replay any shot. Anytime, anywhere. Any questions? Watch Live Golf live and on demand.
He had 4 grabs in the first half for just over 30 yards, was injured, came back in briefly, and then had to be carted off.
We were pessimistic on Puka Nakua's injury to the same right knee, of that being a nothing, just a bursa, and that's it, as per Sean McVay. We felt there could be a small PCL component.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into Pro Football Today, the post-game show with myself, Kasey Hudson, and Tom Vecchio, rolling through Week 3. So let's just get right back into it, Tom. We've talked about a number of games top of the charts, at least most fans are looking forward to, but of course, this Texans-Vikings game has got to be circled on a lot of calendars after what we've seen out of both of these teams through 2.5 weeks of football. Hit me.
Steph Diggs revenge game, Steph Diggs over on yards, Steph Diggs touchdown. That's where we're going. Texans win. They cover. A lot of offense from mostly the Texans, but Diggs finds the end zone.
Diggs, and more Diggs. All right, pivoting over to Eagles Saints. We briefly kind of mentioned this one. You got two teams that will be battling it out. Saints that have been really strong defensively. What do we see?
Ultimately, the under. I think the Saints have been bringing the offense left and right, no doubt about it. But the Eagles have to approach this as a borderline must-win game. So it's about slowing the game down. A big Saquon game, big Kamara game. They both go for 80 plus, 90 plus, but the defenses ultimately show up. So 49.5, I think, is a bit high right now.
Okay, Packers-Titans. This one's pretty interesting, especially because the Titans haven't relatively been out of any game, but Packers are still playing pretty well. What do you see?
This is a revenge game for Malik Willis, but a 36.5 over-under is extremely low. So I would look to Tony Pollard because Tajay Spears is listed as day-to-day right now. And again, the same thing I said last week, Josh Jacobs is going to carry the load for the Packers because they're not going to put too much on the shoulders of Malik Willis. While they have a great young receiving core, it is about Josh Jacobs. So Josh Jacobs' attempts is probably my favorite spot to go.
Oh,
and
maybe
a Will Levis interception because he does some wild stuff out there.
Oh my gosh, you know it's wild if Tom is throwing out any defensive bets and props. We got to see if Adam hops on that one too. That was brilliant. Talk to me about the Broncos versus the Bucks.
Broncos versus the Bucks, 39.5 over under. The same thing I said at the pregame show. What I said last night is it was a Chris Godwin week last week. That means it's a Mike Evans week this week. Not expecting anything out of Bo Nix because he does not look good. So I would not be surprised if the Bucks cover. Would not be surprised if they pick up a defensive touchdown. So give me Mike Evans in over on his longest reception because we know he likes to get down the field. Chris Godwin is back playing in the slot where he should be. So those quick, easy passes from Baker to him, all Bucks on this one.
Yeah, definitely, especially if Rashad White is not in the mix either. Speaking of young quarterbacks, you've got the Bears taking on the Colts.
Yeah, this is a game where we could see a true lack of offense. Caleb Williams looked better than he did in week 1, but it was a super low bar to cross. Jonathan Taylor, that's just going to be the name of the game for the Colts. Jonathan Taylor, it doesn't seem like they're too willing to trust Anthony Richardson to get the ball too deep at a high rate. Like he's going to take his shots downfield, but Keenan Allen, will he play for the Bears? That is a major, major thing because if he's back in there, that's their number one option. They should be looking to on offense. And if it's not going to be him, Odunze has to step up on offense. They have to build some type of connection between him and Caleb Williams. So give me some Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, for the Colts.
Yeah, stop me if you heard this one before. Chargers battling a number of injuries on their roster, taking on the Steelers. Steelers looking at another W to their column. I mean, how do you even approach this one?
Well, it's good to know that the Chargers actually stayed on the East Coast for this game because they were playing Carolina this past week. They did not fly back to the West Coast, so they're staying on the East Coast, which is great. Herbert, he got his leg rolled up on him, and that means it's just going to be J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins has looked great coming off of multiple major injuries over the past few years. For a Harbaugh-led offense, they're going to run the ball. That's what this is about. That is about running the ball for the Chargers. Two solid defenses on both sides, so I'm not super high on Herbert, especially with the ankle, plus T.J. Watt bearing down on him. Probably Herbert under yards, Herbert under attempts, and it's just all about the running game.
All right, we've got a couple seconds left here. Dolphins, Seahawks. I'm seeing a lot of running game because you got a banged-up QB and company.
Yeah, if Kenneth Walker is not good to go again for the Seahawks, he missed last week's game against the Patriots. Zach Charbonnet is going to be the starting running back again. Devon Achane should be the number one option for the Dolphins, with Skylar Thompson presumably starting for them. Sure, you could take some shots with DK Metcalf or Tyreek Hill, but it's probably not going to be a high offense game. So leaning on the under as of now, and again, like you said, rushing props is probably the second best way to go.
Way to run through the rapid fire, Tom. Thank you for the insight and the breakdown. And thank you to the viewers who have joined all of the Sports Grid crew today for any Pro Football Today in-game live and so much more. Pro Football Today pregame show will be back at it Thursday for that Jets-Patriots showdown. So as I tell you every single week, stick with us when it comes to your NFL coverage, all sports coverage here on Sports Grid TV. That's a wrap from myself, Kasey Hudson, and Tom Vecchio tonight. Everyone have a safe evening.